Hello, friends. It's Nikki, and welcome back to my messy bookshelf. So, I meant to check in way before this with my reaction, my thoughts to The Stand. And I've been writing down notes, and I said to myself, I wanted to read a bit further before I checked in again. And then once we got to the last three or 400 pages, I really didn't want to put the book down, and so I forgot to film a check in. So I have finished this book. I finished this morning. I stayed up half the night wanting to finish this book because I couldn't put it down. And I just have so many thoughts running through my head right now. So bear with me because I did take notes, but I took notes before I knew some of the things that were going to happen. So the first thing I want to say is that Stephen King's writing was excellent. It was excellent. I did not realize at first when I started this that this was the complete and uncut version. So there was extra length to some of the chapters. I read the intro where Stephen King talks about putting stuff in that he originally cut from the edition that was first released. And I honestly am glad that I read this full version because I think that one of the things that I really loved about this book was the fact that these characters, we had so much time to get to know these characters. And the characters were so wonderfully layered, so, oh, what's the word I used? They had so much depth to them. And even characters that I didn't like, there was so much to them. I would say the one character that I didn't feel had the most depth was the Dark Man himself, because it was always some sort of deranged, crazy interaction he was having with someone else. Though I will say at the end, it was interesting to see him go from this all powerful, or thought he was all powerful being, to a scared and selfish and uh, defeated figure, if you will. Um, I did struggle, especially in the beginning to middle of the book, with the perspective of the bad side. I really, really loved all the characters from the good side. And I loved all of their chapters. I loved all the perspectives of those characters. When we were early on with the Dark Man as he was recruiting people, I those were the chapters that I felt I needed to put it down and take a break. um as we got closer to the end, I stopped needing to do that because I was just so fascinated with what was going on. So I can't remember where I left off last, but based on my notes, it was before they made it to Mother Abigail and before they made it to Boulder, Colorado. The trash can man situation, when he met the kid when he was on his way to Vegas, those chapters I liked and didn't like them. But the reason I started getting a little bit frustrated with those is that I wrote down here the kid, the character, the kid is hella annoying. And then later on, I went back and said, I'm not even mad at what happened to him. Yeah, he had this really annoying catchphrase that he kept saying at the end of every sentence, and I found that really annoying. So that was more of a thing with the writing, I guess, but thankfully we didn't have to deal with him for too long. So that was probably the one character that I could not stand the most. Um I wrote down before I knew everything that was going to happen. Nadine is a fascinating character right now. She wants, or thinks she wants, to be good, but why is she drawn towards evil? Little did I know. I wrote down the lack of doctors is a bit sad. We had a failed attempt at surgery, and that was kind of sad. Made me think a lot. And then I wrote down how much I enjoyed the way that the free zone, they were thinking about getting things up and running, especially knowing that in Vegas, the Darkman and his cronies were pretty much already up with electricity and everything like that. And I was hoping that the free zone would get their acts together and do something. I loved the characters of Larry, Stu, and Glenn, and Tom. I loved Tom and Nick. So those characters, they were excellent. I loved and hated how they sent people out to the dark man's community, but I knew that it was necessary. I just hated that, they sent out Tom and, you know, the judge and, innocent people that were just getting sent to more than likely die. And the way it all came together in the end was fantastic. I loved it. The trash can man became much more of an intriguing character to me, and I was so satisfied with the way things went down at the end. Seeing the Dark Man deteriorate, and yes, he came back at the end. I sort of expected that, but much weaker than he was before. He still has to build up. So the free zone and all of the people who, don't want to be evil, they have plenty of time to sort of get on their feet again before he raises another army and all of that. But yeah, the trash can man going out into the wilderness, it was very fascinating getting inside of his head, and just made me uncomfy. It made me uncomfy. Um, I was curious to know why Mother Abigail had a suspicion about Harold and not say anything. And then what happened with Nadine, and that was before I knew that she was the intended bride for the Dark Man. Um, I wrote down all caps. Nadine and Harold are living together now. WTF. And then I wrote, how is it that they're both creepy AF, both creepy as hell, and they still scare each other? It was a little bit amusing to me, and, kind of gave me a bit of satisfaction to see them scaring each other, because they were used very poorly, yes, both of them by the Dark Man, but both of them were weak, in my opinion. Weak characters that were easily led astray. So, um, and yeah, that was pretty much all that I wrote down back then. I will say a problem that I had, and don't come for me, please, Stephen King fans. I did have a problem with certain language that Stephen King used in the book. And I know when it was from a character's perspective, it's necessary to tell the story. But there were times when it was not from a character's perspective, and I actually took notes in the book. Let me see if I can find it. Just a few questionable word choices. Um, he used the word retard a lot. He used the word Negro a lot. And one that really caught me by surprise was Chinese eyes. So I just thought that those were a little bit questionable. And there were a couple things with Spanish as well that I was like, you don't really know too many minorities, do you, Stephen? But I have read somewhere that his writing has changed a lot since this book was published. But I mean, it didn't bother me too much, but I was like, that makes me a little puzzled. Your word choices here. Um, what else did I have to say? Yeah, I was very uncomfortable with a lot of the depravity that was happening in the Dark Man's camp, mainly when he was gathering his people. Once we got there, it was typical, like, bad guys in their camp, and I wasn't really too surprised by anything that was going on. Um, love how Larry and Glenn and Ralph made it to his lands, and they basically were given the words from above to say to tick off the Dark Man and make him react. And I loved it. I loved all of those pages. Yeah, now I'm rambling because I didn't write all of this down. And then, what else did I have to say? I'll probably think of a million other things to say about this book after I finish recording, but all of this to say, I am so happy that I finally picked up a Stephen King book. I am happy that I picked up this book. I loved the story, I loved the plot, the writing, minus a couple times where I went, interesting word choice. Minus that, I enjoyed his writing a lot. Oh, and the catchphrases. I really, some of the characters with their catchphrases was a bit frustrating. But he knows how to weave a story. And the way everything came together at the end was just like chef's kiss. Um, love those, love the characters, and, I was satisfied. Because I've heard Stephen King is not known for his endings, so I was expecting a very poor ending. So I was satisfied with the ending here. And I am happy that I read it. Really, really, like I said, made me uncomfy in the beginning, especially me being a Christian and hearing about all the depraved things that were happening and just nastiness. And then at the end, seeing, you know what, there is a big guy upstairs, and you're gonna do what he wants, whether you like it or not. So it kind of made me feel better at the end. Um, but yeah, those are my thoughts so far with The Stand. And I probably should have kept writing, but I just kept turning pages, and I am sorry, my thoughts are not that coherent. But that is me. That is my personality. I never do what I am supposed to do when I am supposed to do it. But I thank you if you made it this far in the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Please let me know your thoughts on this book, and be kind. If you don't agree with me, let's be kind. Okay. Thank you, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.